My name is Ksenia and I'm a senior advisor at the Copenhagen Center. So this webinar is one of the thematic webinars which we host at Copenhagen Center together with our partners. It will last about 90 minutes and we will have a Q&A session at the end. All the materials and recordings will be available online in a few days on our knowledge management system under e-learning session. You can also find there many recordings of other webinars and other useful materials on energy efficiency. Now a few things about the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency. The center conducts research and advisory activities in the field of energy efficiency and serves as energy efficiency hub for sustainable energy for all initiative. We have established a network of global, regional, and national partners with a broad range of stakeholders which work together to accelerate the implementation of energy efficiency. And now I would like to introduce very briefly our speakers today. We have Irina Stamo, who is a research associate with the Institute for Climate Protection, Energy and Mobility. And she will be talking about funding sources for energy efficiency projects. And our second speaker is Victor Gancel, who is a program manager at Climate Kick. And he will talk about how we can accelerate city climate finance for cities and Climate Kick's City Finance Lab. So with that, I would like to start our webinar and give the floor to Irina to start your presentation.
Thank you, Ksenia, for the warm introduction. As Ksenia has already mentioned, today I will be speaking on finance solutions for energy efficiency projects, specifically at the municipal level. And maybe at the beginning I should mention that the research from which we have come up with this result of this in this presentation is based on two ongoing projects which we are currently about to accomplish. The first one is the Dynamic Light project, and the second one is the eNavi, which belongs to the Copernicus platform in Germany. Basically what you can see on the first slide is the funding sources map, which we have produced, and it basically tells you what I will be speaking about today. And I'm gonna start with the European funds, banks and assistance. I should say at the beginning that I will present today lots of programs on the European level and beyond that. And there will be lots of details and lots of focuses, and I'm gonna go into each of those programs in order to point out the details. So the first one is the European Structural Investment Funds, EISIF. It offers substantial funding and technical assistance, and basically this too was founded to channel their resources to the member states through operational programs, which are designed by each country according to its policy priorities. As you can see, the first one is here to mention is the European Regional Development Fund, ERDF. You're basically probably aware of. It's one of the biggest funds, and it was founded to strengthen economic and social cohesion in the European Union by mitigating the imbalances between its regions. And it has certain areas where the fund is operating, and to those areas the support of the decarbonization of industry enterprises, mobility, housing, and especially public infrastructure belongs, and also the adoption to climate change. And the second one, I'm not going to go into details how to apply for each of the programs, for each of the funds or technical assistance tools. I think after the presentation you will be able in a couple of days to enter the presentation. Then you will be finding the like those links which will allow you to have a look at those programs. The second one is the Cohesion Fund. Cohesion Fund provides funding for environmental and trans-European network projects. This trans-European network partnership focus is basically It's one of the major points in the cohesion funds. But the other prominent point about this fund is that they fund the projects and they would like to strengthen the EU economic and social and territorial cohesion in countries where the gross national income is below 90% of the EU average. To those countries belong such countries as, for example, Bulgaria, Croatia, Estonia, Greece, Hungary, Lithuania, Latvia, just to name a couple of them. Here you can see that, for example, I can also maybe mention that for the timeline for this budgeting period between 2014 and 2020, a whole sum of 63 billion euros was foreseen in order to fund those projects. The next one is ESIR, financial instruments, and the technical assistance. This too is actually the success of the formula JESSICA, and JESSICA is the Joint European Support for Sustainable Investment in City Areas, and it basically focuses on the acceleration of investment in urban development. The last one is in this group is the Interreg Central Europe. And just to mention that the one project that we have worked on is the dynamic light has been funded by the Interreg Central Europe, and as the name is already seen to us, that it's basically it funds the projects, it supports the projects which are in the Central Europe, and it has different focus areas, and one of those areas is low carbon economy, and it basically supports transnational partnerships in innovation, carbon dioxide reduction, transborder mobility also, and protection of natural and cultural resources. The second group is the European banks and funds. Here, the first one is to mention, of course, is the European Investment Bank. This kind of bank, it was founded in order to achieve EU targets and the EU goals. And actually, the bank borrows lands multilaterally and provides guidance and questions regarding potential combinations of financing sources, and provides administrative and support and project management. So the AIB defines 4 priority areas that only project with sustainable contribution will be supported. So here is the focus on sustainable contribution. It is possible to, as you can see, there are multiple financial instruments which are there in order to support your projects, and it is possible to cover up to 50% of eligible costs for projects which would fulfill the strict requirements. And once again here, that the requirements there can be found out on the websites of the EIB. The second one to mention here is the European Fund for Strategic Investment. And the focus of this fund is to decrease the investment gap between in the European Union by mobilizing private finance for strategic investment projects which promote growth and create jobs. They have also different areas which they are focusing on. And they have a big support from the European Investment Bank, namely 16 billion euros, guarantee from the EU budget, and from the EIB itself, it's 5 billion euros. And they have also different areas such as strategic infrastructure, education, research, development, innovation, expansion. What is really important to us is the expansion of renewable energy and resource efficiency. And they're also telling us that the EU cross-border projects are really welcome and are also eligible for the funding. The next one is the private finance for energy efficiency instrument. This is another instrument which is aimed to provide access to affordable debt financing in the area of energy efficiency. And they actually provide some long-term loans for up to 20 years and at competitive rates. And it is possible to cover up to 75% of the capital costs. And the focus here, this emphasis here is lying on the implementation of the national energy efficiency action plans. The next one here in this row is the European Energy Efficiency Fund. This fund, as the name is already telling us, they provide direct investment to project developers, energy service companies, and small-scale energy service providers for projects that promote energy efficiency and renewable agency. Since they are really concentrated on and specific on directed energy efficiency support, they do the activities they cover. This is like public and private buildings incorporating renewable energy and energy efficiency solutions, such as like technology with innovative and economic potential. Projects about the energy efficiency upgrade in the local infrastructure, including efficient lighting, electricity storage solutions, smart metering, and so on. The next one here to mention is the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, which the audience is probably aware of. Here you can see also on this the little graph, which is quite up to date, is as of June of 2018, which was provided by the bank itself. The focus here, they actually do provide funding for public and private sector, but I should say they are mostly focused on the private sector, but they also they operate not only in the European Union, but on different levels. Those are, for example, Central Asia, Central Europe, Southern and Eastern Mediterranean. And here you can see, for example, the allocation of the financial means up to since 2005. And they do provide different loans, starting with the 5 million up to 250 million. On the website, you can check also actually the projects and the countries where the bank is operating. And basically, you just need to provide a project concept, which will be reviewed by the operations committee and then by the board of directors, but the procedure is quite complicated, and it's really recommendable to always maybe to search for managing authority, which is assigned to a certain country you're living in, and then to maybe to look at the guideline, which is on the website, and just to follow the steps provided there. The next group is the technical assistance and project development. Here we have also 5 tools which are helpful and which have different focus areas. The first one is here to mention is the European Local Energy Assistance, Irina. It was established in 2009 by the European Commission and the European Investment Bank in order to mobilize investments for sustainable energy projects at the local level. And what maybe the interesting feature about that one, about this tool, is that they support only projects of at least 30 million, so they should be really big projects. They do also have different areas where they provide technical assistance for its energy efficiency in public and private building, integration of renewable energy in the built environment, renovating, extending, building new district heating, cooling networks, urban transport. So it's really heterogeneous, all-around integration and deployment of renewable energies. And I should say that they provide support of a 2 to 4 year period and covers up to 90% of technical assistance and project development costs. The next one is the Horizon 2020. This is, I would say, one of the most prominent ones. The Horizon 2020 is for energy efficiency calls. You just have, I think, a couple or 2 deadlines per year. And the proposal, they actually should provide innovative solutions in financing energy efficiency. They also want to see the proposals which are about the sectors of existing public and private buildings. Street lighting belongs also to those areas, or retrofitting of existing district heating, cooling, energy efficiency in urban transport. The next one to mention here is the JASPERS, Joint Assistance to Support Projects in European Regions. This one is the EU Regional Development Policy Instrument set up between the European Commission, EIB, and EBRD. And Jaspers offers actually capacity building support in independent consulting services to help prepare high quality projects that will be supported by the ESIF. So almost the same budget period as for the most tools is the budgeting period of 2014 till 2020. And the Jaspers, how they support project, they identify different priority areas. So for example, the first priority is the magic projects in 19 member states, which the second priority is the projects where any other projects eligible or potentially eligible for cohesion fund assistance. So, and other projects supported or potentially eligible for ERDF assistance are the last priorities. And the projects can be supported up to 75 million in transport area, for example, and 50 million for the other sectors. Here, the last but not least is the European Investment Advisory Hub. And this is the hub offers actually a single point of entry to advisory and technical assistance programs and initiatives in the European Union. It actually also provides kind of a cooperation platform for partners and other beneficiaries just to exchange expertise. And I should mention here that the municipalities and public and managing authorities may contact directly the advisory hub. The hub supports projects that may be eligible for the EIB financing, but it's not limited to EIB finance projects. So basically, you can just directly to fill out the form and directly contact the hub and approach them with your questions. The last one in this group is the Financial Instruments Advisory Service. This is also an advisory service too, but it's kind of a different one than the last one. It's an advisory platform, but basically in order to provide an exchange between of a practical know-how and learning tools, actually, and it's just it's very beneficiary for those who wants to apply for the EU programs. The next one, which we have come up through our research, is the national public financing sources. However, we know that each member state operates and co-finances multiple supporting programs based on the SIF funding. However, many countries offer additional support options. Here you can see the countries only of Central Europe, because we were focused on those countries due to our project focus. But it's actually here are just some examples, but they are all different in all countries, and I think it's maybe you should check just country by country when you need to when you live in a certain country how to apply and what kind of national managing authorities you have in each country. The next one, which is also very important when it comes to finance your energy efficiency upgrade project, is the financial intermediaries. Financial intermediaries, they play a crucial role in order to provide finance for energy efficiency investments. And we all know that energy efficiency objectives are really high on the agendas of the EU and on the national agendas. And that's why many commercial banks have come up with an idea in order to provide dedicated and separate credit lines on our financial projects in order to support those projects. However, there are different problems connected with that. It's, for example, that there is much skepticism in terms of costs, or that the costs will be higher than anticipated because those projects are not that common as the other ones. And obviously, smaller municipalities are quite will be not in that adventurous position in comparison to the larger municipalities, since lots of infrastructure projects, they do require large upfront investment, upfront investment, and the smaller municipalities, they obviously do not have those means. And also, the smaller municipalities, they are vulnerable due to issue of the transaction costs. The next one, which I will just briefly introduce, that the private sources. This is also one of the, I think, most interesting part also for the municipalities how they can finance those projects also on the basis of private sources. Multiple private sources, they can be utilized for the energy efficiency projects. They can be different actors which can support the projects. I think also from one of my colleagues, she will be doing webinars specifically on those private sources. But I will be briefly introducing you into this group. First one is the financing by a private contractor. It can be possible through the contracting, energy performance contracting, leasing or concession. The municipal actors, they can reallocate, so to say, to those third parties the burden of financing energy efficiency infrastructure. For instance, financing can be covered by a private partner which delivers the upgrade works, is usually not responsible for the energy supply and therefore cannot use energy savings for its financing needs. The private partner finances the energy efficiency project for its own funds and obtains the funds from third parties. For its services, the contractor receives payment from the municipalities. Alternatively, financing can be provided by a private partner, which delivers the upgrade works, makes payment on the basis of energy savings achieved, and uses those payments to make the project investments. And for example, as for the energy performance contract, as this model is really widespread nowadays, the municipality or a private partner is responsible for the energy supply. And in the end, however, it is always the municipality that pays for the services. One of the major benefits of such a financing model is that the municipality may transfer all the risk related to the implementation, design, maintenance of a new energy efficiency technologies to an ESCO or another private partner. The next one, which I will be also shortly introducing you into, is financing through utilities. It is possible through energy efficiency obligations or on-bill financing. The first one, which is also called white certificates, is really common in the 16 EU member states. And those schemes oblige energy distributors or retail energy sale companies to achieve specific energy saving goals through energy efficiency measures, for example, street lighting or any other projects. And on-bill financing, I should say that this kind of financing through utilities, so on bills, for the bills, is quite more common in the United States than in Europe. But the utility provides a loan to a municipality to cover the upfront investment, and the municipality repays the cost through its energy bill. Last but not least, crowdfunding. It is becoming quite popular nowadays. It's actually nothing else than a platform that allow people to jointly invest in energy efficiency projects. And those crowdfunding is financing provided by the group of individuals or organization. It could be anybody. And here you can see also another platform, CD Energy 8. This is kind of European portal where you can check those crowdfunding platforms and maybe also participate. Almost the last one in this group is the institutional investors. They represent another source of funding for energy efficiency projects. I should say the number of such investors is still quite small. The reason is that the cost of accessing green municipal projects are often higher than the investors can expect back from them. And another barrier arises from the nature of such infrastructure projects. And so those institutional investors can be insurance companies, pension funds, mutual funds, and any other kind of funds. The last one is the energy community one. Energy communities, which are really, really popular in Germany and are becoming even more popular in the rest of Europe. They do represent cooperative energy funding, so community finance solution for project investment in the energy market. Such communities consist of individuals, household, customers, and businesses. They form a development finance institution that provides financial and credit services to markets run by local banks. I I should say, I know that my presentation has had a lot of details. I would be more than happy to share my presentation of our sources with you. And I should also say that if any of you from the audience has any questions or remarks, that please feel free in order to direct your questions to my email address. We will be more than happy to answer you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victor Gancel. I work as a program manager for the Climate Kick. I'll start by introducing ourselves. So the Climate Kick is a pan-European program aiming at addressing climate change through strategic innovation. We are 8 years old, and our mandate from the European Institute of Technology was really to create and mobilize a community of innovators coming from both the public and the private sector to develop innovative solutions against climate change. So we have structured our strategy around impact goals ranging from urban transition, sustainable land use, sustainable production system, and decision metrics and finance. So over the last years, we've really grown our European footprint. So as you can see, the Climate Kick is present in most Europe, either directly through physical offices or indirectly through the activities that we are supporting. We've grown quite a lot. We are now mobilizing more than 300 public and private institutions. So on the public sector, we're talking about research centers, academia, local authorities can also be part of our partnership, NGOs. While on the private side, we're going to work with startups. We have a very big acceleration program for startup. We've supported more than 1,000 startups. We're working with SMEs up to large corporate groups. So really, we have a very broad portfolio of activities, and I do really encourage you to go on our website to see what we're exactly doing. So today I'm going to present one of our flagship programs, which is called the Low Carbon City Lab. So the Climate Kick, as part of its strategy, has also identified a set of strategic issues that had to be addressed and is putting more resources, more partners to create meaningful change. So city finance, addressing the huge and increasing investment gap in cities is really seen for us as the nexus for climate action. This is in cities that the fight for climate change will be won or lost. And I guess that the audience is well aware of how difficult it is for cities in accessing finance, but even also how to identify their relevant climate action to be undertaken. So as part of the Low Carbon City Lab, which is our program on city finance, we are developing innovative solutions and tools around three pillars. The first one being training. We know it's hard for municipal staff to get to know how climate finance work, how to structure projects. So here we're supporting training programs under a blended learning approach, meaning that we're combining digital platforms, digital MOOCs with physical content. And I also encourage you to have a look on our website where you'll get access to our online training programs. This is something we're doing in Europe, but we're also doing it outside Europe. And right now we have an ongoing training and capacity building program for Moroccan and Western African municipalities. The second pillar deals with project preparation. Cities are currently challenged on the pace upon which they are identifying their project and structuring them. Also, you might know that structuring infrastructure projects can be extremely costly and extremely lengthy. So we're also looking at ways where we can accelerate a pipeline, the generation of a pipeline, while reducing the transaction cost that are incurred when structuring infrastructure projects. So here we are also looking at matchmaking to investors. How can we get investors earlier in the project design phase? How can we incentivize them to bear some of the development costs? We're also looking at project preparation facilities. Where and how can we create hubs of knowledge, of technical knowledge that cities could tap in when they want to develop their project. And finally, we're looking at the investment step, meaning what are the mechanisms, the channels that both public and private investors will use to channel money within the cities. So I'm just going in this presentation to give you a taste of what innovations the Climate Kick is supporting in the area of city climate finance. And of course, if you want more information, feel free to contact me directly. The first project I would like to showcase here is the City Finance Lab. So I know it's a lab within a lab, but this is our first finance innovation platform for cities in Europe. How does it work? Basically, we know that there are cities out there that have innovative ideas, but then would lack all the technical skills to move them forward. So we're looking to identify through a call for proposal really innovative ideas and with a scaling and replication potential. So there's an open call, and cities and all developers working closely with a city can apply. The deadline is mid-July, and feel free to go on our website to get more information. But once selected, we're going to deploy Climate Kick partners that will act as technical assistants for the municipalities in shaping their idea and take it to the market. And of course, we, as Climate Kick, as a catalyst, as a knowledge center, we want to capture this test case and transform it into actionable learning materials, and then push them to all the catalysts that were presented earlier by Irina. We want all those technical advisors to know, okay, what are the new ways of doing things, what works and what does not. So you'll find in the presentation a link to our call. This is something that we're right now piloting in Europe, but we know there's a potential to deepen the technical assistance that is provided to cities, but also in geographical replication. There are huge challenges in terms of decentralization, in terms of de-risking when it comes to investing in a municipal environment. And we think that this model, this innovation platform model, also would be very relevant in Africa or Latin America. I think it's also very important to involve the entire climate finance landscape around those innovations, because otherwise you might end up having, well, a good test case that will only have worked in a specific context. So with the City Finance Lab, we think it's also a great opportunity to bring around a table all the relevant stakeholders, from the high level government, national, subnational, also the financial intermediaries, the MDBs, if we're the multilateral development bank, if we're in a geography where they're active, and of course the cities themselves. We think it's also, innovation is also very empowering activity that we're doing with cities. Instead of having solution providers bombarding them with solutions, they can really take part into the definition of the solutions they would be using. The two projects I will now present you deal more with project preparation, the second pillar of the low carbon city lab. So as you know, it's hard for cities to move away from the historical approach, which was relying on municipal taxes or relying solely on intergovernmental transfer. Public funding is really drying out right now. We're not in a very good environment when it comes to using public finance. There are huge caps in Europe on debt level, so cities have to become able to hunt for private capital. One idea, one project we're supporting right now deals with districts. We think that districts can be very powerful levers of change within a city. And through the neighborhood economics projects, which is led by AESS Modena, which is an energy agency, very innovative energy agency active in Italy, we're now building a toolkit for districts and for municipalities to very quickly scan who are the relevant stakeholders, scan the potential, identify the potential projects, and finally select the ones that will be the most promising one, meaning that the ones that will be deemed bankable enough for investors, but also have a demonstrated climate impact. So it's already generating a pipeline. We started this project last year. I would say yes, 12 months ago. I think the approach works well. The methodology is working well. We're working with Malmö and Bologna, so we're piloting this as we speak, and we think there's a high replication potential. I think in many European cities, we're seeing lots of neighborhoods, lots of districts, taking radical action when it comes to reducing their emissions or increasing their resilience. A second project I wanted to showcase is called EU Pubret. So here we're targeting energy efficiency and mostly the retrofit of public buildings. So municipalities have significant building stocks. They own either social housing or municipal buildings, public service buildings, and what we see is that they're currently inefficient. If we do a benchmark of their performance, and it's a kind of win-win situation for cities. It's really a low-hanging fruit, but so far the pace upon which public buildings are being retrofitted is not up to what it should be. So right now we have the idea of building mini project preparation facilities within municipalities, meaning how can we pool all the necessary expertise, all the necessary skills and knowledge resources in a city to accelerate the procurement and the financing of public buildings. So we're right now, we're just starting this journey. We already have the commitment and implication of Budapest, Bologna, Copenhagen, and Valencia, because we also wanted to give a pan-European flavor. There will be lots of different national contexts when it comes to public building retrofit that then calls for, well, very context specific, very geographical specific knowledge to be channeled to cities. Also, it's through these projects, we also want to find what business model, what incentives can we find to keep those knowledge hubs, those project preparation facilities afloat in a urban context. So we are, as you can see, we're starting in political Europe, but we also know that there's a huge potential, huge untapped potential in emerging countries. So that's it for now. I'll hand over back to the organizers, and if you have questions, don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Irina and Victor, for very interesting presentations. We are moving now to questions and answer session, and I would like to encourage all participants to express their burning questions. You can use the panel for GoToWebinar to type your question, and then we will ask the panelists. You can also put the name of the panelist whom you would like to address the question to, or just to pose question for the discussion. But we already have a couple of questions, and I guess we will start with Irina, who presented quite a number of funding sources for European cities, municipalities to access energy efficiency finance for their projects. And one of the first questions is, so there are many funding sources. What would be your advice for experts who are interested in applying for funding on how to navigate among them? Irina?
Yeah. Oh, thank you for your question, Ksenia. I would say it's really quite complicated in order to come up for a municipality or whoever wants to apply with a project idea, how to find out which funding source is the most eligible one. Yeah, and I think this is one of the reasons why we have made this research, what we have made. Because it is nowadays, I think one of the steps would be probably to look at our robot. The second step maybe to find out what is your focus area, and then start search for the right tool. But how to find the right tool? I think the first step would be also, of course, Google, but then also to find out what is the managing authority, for example, appointed by the EIB or the ESIF in your country, and what is maybe there are other supporting programs which will be provided by your own country, not only the European program.
Great, thank you very much. I think it will be much easier for if we knew the context of this question, what kind of projects we're dealing with, as Irina pointed out. A bit more specific question. Could you please elaborate about the maximum and minimum threshold values for each of the instruments you presented? It has been mentioned that they could cover up to 85%. So I guess it depends on each instrument, but maybe generalize somehow and give the flavor of these numbers.
I should say that, generally speaking, all of the funds which I have presented today, or like instruments or tools, they are quite generous with a percentage of the cost which they are covering. But it should be mentioned that it's up to those percentage. So it means that it's really heterogeneous. I cannot say that there is this or that threshold just for each instrument or for each funding, because it will all be decided individually, depending on each projects, depending on each project or on the area. Or, for example, there is also important to say and to mention that, for example, different budgeting period of the certain instrument has, for example, an area which they are focused on, and the call is dedicated to that or that topic. So it means, for example, that in the future period or in the second period, it will be much more possible to get, for example, much more funding than in the period before. So it's really heterogeneous. I would really recommend maybe to look into the presentation where all the links are provided, or write us, for example, a message that we have this and that project. So maybe could you please navigate us how we can proceed further? Then I would be happy to help.
Great, thank you very much. And one more question for you is about crowdfunding, which you covered. So the question is, what is your experience with crowdfunding, and do you know what kind of projects usually get financed through this way, and what are the success factors to get the financing?
I should say crowdfunding is really different. I know that, for example, crowdfunding has become popular in the Scandinavian countries and also in Germany. But I know that that the focus is really aligned on the sustainability. So there should be energy projects and like energy efficiency projects, and that the focus is the sustainability. And I should say that the municipalities, they often face various difficulties, yes, stemming from the fact that they are too small scale or not attractive enough for local banks. And of course, for them, the crowdfunding could be of a really big interest, and it could be really an alternative financing models. I would say that energy efficiency topic is really on their agenda. And but I wouldn't be now be able to maybe say that this topic is really high and now. I think it also depends on different reasons.
Right. And from my side, I'm just curious, do you know, is it usually small projects who are getting financed through crowdfunding, or it really varies in terms of the investment size?
I think it varies in terms of investment, and in terms of what kind of platform will be looked at.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we will move now to the questions which I addressed to Victor. And the first one is, what are the key criteria Climate Kick is looking at when creating project portfolio, and what are you primarily considering to evaluate the projects, whether they are bankable or not? Victor?
So you know, the projects that Climate Kick is supporting are the city project that are coming throughout our program. So I would say that for the first question, so the Climate Kick is supporting a transformational change. So it means that we're going to select the innovations proposed by our partners based on their scaling and replication potential. To what extent can it trigger transformational change? Then when it comes to cities, so of course, you know, we want that the second degree impact of the tools we're supporting are, you know, positive on climate and have co-benefits, but we're not like the EIB, meaning that we don't yet have, you know, just one scorecard or one criteria list. And so far, all those criteria are defined by our various project leads, so the partners that are working with the Climate Kick. And it depends on also the context. So some cities, for example, like Malmö, will be looking a lot at the social economical impact, the co-benefits of climate action, while in other contexts already getting to climate and resilience is already a challenge per se. So yes, we don't have one set of criteria.
Thank you very much. And one more question is about stakeholders. You spoke about the importance of engaging stakeholders throughout the process, and the question is, what are the main ways Climate Kick is bringing different stakeholders together? I guess meaning within your programs or one specific project, do you have some mechanisms for that?
So on the first one, we're a community, meaning that, you know, organizations can apply to become Climate Kick partners, and it's also our mission to integrate the knowledge triangle, so academia, research, and innovation. So as you will see on our on slides presenting our partnership, I mean, we're there to identify the best in class, the most innovative and committed organizations willing to address climate change through strategic innovation. So that's the overall, and for that we have many ways we're engaging with this community. So it's either through innovation projects or events we're doing, or working groups, sector-related working groups. So there are really many ways we're engaging at Climate Kick level with stakeholders, and then if we look at, you know, what's happening right now in our city projects, again, it's a very wide panorama of potential engagement mechanisms. So some of our projects will use IT platforms for city stakeholders to engage in the project inception. In others, that will be done a bit more on a bilateral basis. So here again, I'm afraid I don't have like a one answer for this.
Thank you, Victor. I have a couple of questions which I think can be relevant for both of you. So I think I'll just pose the question, and whoever wants to start is welcome. One of them is about small municipalities. I think, Irina, you mentioned that small municipalities sometimes have difficulties in accessing certain sources of funding. But what would be your advice, your expert advice to small municipalities? How should they approach unlocking finance for energy efficiency projects? Do you have specific mechanisms or sources which they should start looking at? And what do they need to actually access finance?
I can take this one as the first one. Is that okay for you, Victor?
Sure.
Yeah, you're totally right. Small municipalities, I think, is the overall problem on different levels in different countries, different continents. The small municipalities, they do face difficulties dealing with how to finance themselves because they have because they don't have such a high budget in order to finance those big infrastructure projects or energy efficiency upgrade projects. I would say that first of all, like if we're speaking about the energy efficiency as our webinar is dedicated to this topic, that it's always good to define, okay, what is our problem, just to write it down, and to start to look, okay, with whom can we cooperate? Can we cooperate with some private partners? Can we cooperate with some, I don't know, local utilities or national utilities? What kind of banks are there? Do those banks have like separate credit lines that could finance us? Or can we use, for example, different models which exist, which I also mentioned? But for example, if we assume that a municipality has no idea that there are such models, right? They have just internet. So it's basically, it's always good just to check what kind of projects have been already done, and what kind, and just to also to look whether they can finance also those projects themselves. For example, through allocation of the resources within the budget, and things like that. And if not, they need to, of course, calculate what kind of funding they would need for what period of time. And I would always say that, for example, nowadays it has become very transparent that the websites are offering really descriptive things and lots of information in terms of what kind of areas they have funded and what kind of partners. I would go like that I would always search for similar projects, maybe also in similar areas, who knows, and just to try to contact people in order to get some advice, advisory service, consulting services, and yeah, I would say they should go this way.
Thank you, Irina.
But maybe one more detail is that, of course, that the scale maybe of the different projects for small municipalities especially is quite limited. And they are quite limited in their possibilities and opportunities. Most probably, of course, I have mentioned different funds, but they do, for example, one of like some of them only support projects which are, I don't know, more than 20 million. Of course, that small municipality don't want even such projects which are more than 20 million or at least 20 million ones. Yeah, so in terms of that, they are quite limited, but I just think if they go that way, that will be the right way for them to go.
Yeah, I think this is a very valid point. In our work, we also face a very similar issue that it's from small cities, it's very hard to access certain sources of funding exactly because of the investment size. I'm wondering if you or Victor have examples of projects where different cities partner together to create a bigger size project or portfolio of projects which would be eligible for bigger size investments. But this is something to think about.
I would say that first of all, we would need to define what is small. Yeah, what is small project, what is small funding, what is small municipality. So we have, for example, in this project, what I have mentioned today, Dynamic Light, couple of municipalities. But like once again, and also there is another project what we have applied for example, as a consortium. There are also some municipalities which are participating, but they are, for example, they have only, like in question marks, only 200,000 inhabitants. I don't know, this is small, not small, so. But I don't know, Victor has mentioned a couple of small cities in his presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Victor, would you like to elaborate on those several questions which were raised here?
Yes, so quickly. So yes, I mean, project very often the size of the city will matter. I mean, it also it determines, you know, whether or not it's deemed credit worthy by investors. But also clearly, I think the main challenge is also the size of the projects, and you know, the big investors. We say that they don't go out of the bed, you know, below X million euro. So project pooling, project aggregation is really a field where, you know, everybody is right now trying to find solutions very quickly. How can we aggregate different projects into a common investment vehicle that would reach, you know, the critical size for investors? So I mean, I think we've got some few cases here and there, but it's not yet mainstream. Although we also would like to be working on that with our partners. Then linking that to the various mechanisms that Irina presented, I think I do recall there was a transport project supported by Elena about a tramway, which was, you know, moving across various municipalities, but I don't know if there are many European mechanisms that allow multiple cities or, you know, pooling of multiple projects. So this is something to be. This is something that could be that should be checked, I think.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
No, obviously, I can add maybe something to that. Obviously, not only Elena, like what I personally know and experience that Interact Central Europe, they do support lots of projects where really small municipalities, like if we think small, like up to 150 or 200,000 inhabitants or population, they really welcome those projects, and lots of projects have already won. But they need to build a consortium, and they, for example, Interact Central Europe, they have a precondition that you need to have 3 partners in order to build a consortium. So, but they are very welcome in those projects where those municipalities which are meant to implement those innovative or technologies or whatever solutions, energy efficiency solutions, that they are participating in order to have some pilots.
Great. Yeah, I think it's our task as well as researchers to look for this kind of mechanisms, because we are facing more and more medium-sized and small cities asking this question to international expert community. And as Victor pointed out, there are very few success stories, so we actually have to start working on developing those as well. But linking to the same subject, there is a specific question about climate kit. So Victor, it's for you. Regarding climate kit eligibility criteria, is there a minimal size of a city that you support? And is there also support options for rural regions that wish to develop towards low emission model?
Okay, so we are we know that lots of big cities and big city-oriented programs are catching all the light, and we know as Climate Kick, I mean, there's so much to be done that has to be done with intermediary cities. So we're completely agnostic, meaning that we have small cities that are part of our partnership, and there are bigger ones as well. So we are also looking at a territorial scale. So we're also looking at collaborating at the regional level, and I think also the challenge of vertical integration, which can also be a way to circumvent the difficulty of small cities to access funding. So these are all areas, vertical integration, that we're looking at also on how to support smaller cities.
Great. That's great that you can accommodate those needs as well. I think maybe the final question for today, as we had such a very interesting and interactive Q&A session, and thank you for all participants for posing such comprehensive questions. So we have one more. I think it would fit both of you. Would you have any recommendations which financing mechanism would be most appropriate for projects focused on awareness raising and training for residents on energy efficiency rather than investments in energy efficiency upgrades? So awareness raising and training for residents, I guess we're talking about buildings, residential buildings.
Maybe I can start this one, Irina, if you are okay with this.
Yeah, sure.
I think here, clearly on those early stage awareness raising, I think the first entry door and the first contact point should be city networks. And if you're based in Europe, I would say the main European city network. So from Climate Alliance, Eurocities, ECLAY, etc. I was looking recently at the multi-annual report from the Covenant of Mayor, and if you look at what activities are being done on the ground with those networks, or cities engaging with those networks, is training and awareness raising, early phase training and capacity building. So they would really be the one providing you with the best advice on where and how to get support for this.
Great point. I think city networks is a great support for cities who are still looking for their ways how to start the process, or who need some inspiration from other cities. So thanks, Victor, for your point. Irina, would you like to?
Yeah, exactly. I do agree with Victor. This is like one kind of a specific kind of points. And I would say the only thing which comes to my mind in order to upgrade or to increase awareness towards certain topics, it may be Jaspers or like technical assistance tools, which do provide some advisory services. But Jaspers, this is like really a regional development tool. They do offer capacity building support. I don't know, maybe to increase awareness, it's also I think about the capacity building, and they also offer independent consulting services. But I don't know, maybe I would also go to those hubs, advisory platforms, which I have named today. Maybe there is some information there. But as I have understood, so it's not specifically about the project development. It's just they just want to raise awareness towards certain topic, right?
Yes, the question sounded like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, thank you very much, both of you. I think we can agree that there is a huge pool of information and sources and funding resources which cities can use. It's still a very complicated area to navigate through, and that's why we have our great experts to help, and they are willing to answer any of your questions even after the webinar, and we at Copenhagen Center are happy to assist you as well. So this webinar, all the materials and recordings will be available on our knowledge management system. You can see the link on your screen. Give us a couple of days to process everything. And there you can also navigate through many different resources on energy efficiency. And if you have specific questions, or you need help or expert advice, feel free just to send us a request, inquiry, email, and we'll do our best to help you and or link to relevant partners. With that, I would like to thank again our great panelists and also all the participants who stayed throughout the webinar, posed questions, or just listened. Stay tuned because we are going to have more webinars coming. We're doing them on a regular basis on different topics on energy efficiency. So make sure that you're subscribed to our newsletter and updates, and you will be getting news about upcoming webinars. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, wherever you are, and see you soon.